درج يعني أنا نعرف أنه نائب أو مسؤول يعني يتم المهمة حتى يعني يتحصل
نعم.
حل المشكلة.
نعم، شكرا جزيلا لك عبد النور قاسمي. نتمنى أن هذا الانشغال نطرحه في البرنامج ويلقى الأذان الصاغية. شكرا جزيلا لك.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Foreign Minister Ahmed Hattaf is taking part in the 162nd session of the Arab League Ministerial Council in Cairo, Egypt, devoted to the dangerous developments in Palestine. The Arab foreign ministers meeting in Cairo have decided to initiate procedures to freeze the participation of the Israeli occupation in the proceedings of the United Nations General Assembly on the grounds of non-compliance with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, failure to honor its commitments to the UN, and the threat it poses to international peace and security. South Africa has announced its intention to submit a memorandum to the International Court of Justice next month, including evidence proving that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received several messages congratulating him for his re-election as President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. The details with Jebel Salmani.
The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, has sent a message of congratulations to the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, on the occasion of his re-election for a second term, according to a press release issued by the Presidency of the Republic. In his message of congratulations, President Putin expressed his wish to raise the declaration on the deep strategic partnership signed last year between Algeria and Russia to a higher level. The President of the Republic of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, and his Vice President, Rosario Murillo, have congratulated the President of the Republic on the occasion of his re-election for a second term, highlighting the brotherly relations linking the Nicaraguan and Algerian peoples, according to the same press release. Moreover, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received a telephone call from his brother, Najib Mikati, Prime Minister of Lebanon, who congratulated him on the occasion of his re-election for a further term in office. The President of the Republic has also received a message of congratulations from the President of the Pan-African Parliament on the occasion of his re-election. Meanwhile, the head of the political bureau of Hamas, brother Yahya al-Sinwar, has sent a message of congratulation to President Tebboune on the occasion of the success of the presidential elections and congratulating the Algerian people's renewed confidence in him to lead the country.
For his part, the King of Jordan, Abdullah II, has congratulated President Tebboune for his re-election. The candidate of the Socialist Forces Front FFS in the September 7th presidential election, Youssef Aouchiche, has lodged an appeal with the Constitutional Court concerning the preliminary result of the election announced last Sunday by the President of the Independent National Election Authority, Ani Mohamed Sharfi. In a statement to the press after being received by the President of the Constitutional Court, Omar Belhaj, Youssef Aouchiche said the following.
The appeal includes all the excesses that we have noted, especially on the day of the election and during the announcement of the results, that we don't accept at all, as they do not reflect the will of the people and voters.
The candidate of the Movement of the Society for Peace, MSP, in the September 7, 2024 presidential election, Abdelhani Hassani Sharif, has also lodged an appeal with the Constitutional Court concerning the preliminary result of this election announced last Sunday by the President of the Independent National Authority, Ani Mohamed Sharfi. In a statement to the press after the appeal had been lodged, the MSP candidate had this to say.
In line with the election law, we lodged an appeal before the Constitutional Court against the results announced by the President of the National Independent Authority. This is due to the assessment we made and the legal evidence we have that proves that the results announced have many contradictions, notably regarding the turnouts announced. The results found in these minutes go against the results announced by the National Independent Authority for Elections. We lodged an appeal that includes a table of comparison between the results. We lodged an appeal that includes several notifications that we submitted to the National Independent Authority for Elections, which led us to this illogical outcome.
The Acting Director General of Legal Affairs and Constitutional Justice at the Constitutional Court, Ahmed Ibrahim Bukhari, has said that the President of the Constitutional Court, Omar Belhaj, has appointed rapporteurs at the level of 2 working groups to examine the 2 appeals lodged with the court concerning the preliminary result of the presidential election. In a statement to the Algerian television, Ahmed Ibrahim Bukhari had this to say.
تم اليوم إيداع طعنين من طرف المترشحين.
2 appeals were lodged today by the candidates before the Constitutional Court. The President of the Constitutional Court received the 2 candidates concerned. The President of the Constitutional Court has appointed members who formed 2 groups in charge of studying these appeals, pending receiving the last concentrated appeal in charge of the Election Committee for the National Community settled abroad. The time frame of studying these appeals will be in accordance with the legal deadlines of the Constitutional Court, which will announce the final results of the presidential election.
As a reminder, the campaign management teams of the 3 candidates in the presidential elections of December 7th issued a joint press release on Sunday informing the public that inaccuracies, contradictions, ambiguities and inconsistencies has been found in the figures of the provisional results of the presidential election. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, is taking part in the 162nd session of the Arab League Ministerial Council in Cairo, Egypt. This session is devoted to the examination of several issues relating to the joint Arab action, notably the dangerous developments that the Palestinian cause and the entire region are facing due to the Israeli escalation and the crisis and conflicts that threaten security and stability in several Arab countries. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has held bilateral talks in Cairo with his Egyptian counterpart, Badr Abdelhati, on the sidelines of his participation in the 162nd session of the Council of the Arab League at ministerial level. Asya Bekkar has the details in this report.
On this occasion, the 2 ministers reviewed the relations of brotherliness and cooperation between the 2 brotherly countries and ways of strengthening them in anticipation of upcoming bilateral events, notably the 9th session of the Grand Algerian-Egyptian Joint Commission. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad also held bilateral talks in Cairo with several of his Arab counterparts and brothers on the sidelines of his participation in the 162nd session of the Council of the Arab League at the ministerial level, including the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Tunisia, Libya, Mauritania, Sudan, Yemen, Syria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as the Secretary General of the Arab League. He also met the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the State of Palestine, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Sultanate of Oman. These bilateral meetings were an opportunity for Ahmed Attaf to consult with his brothers on the main points on the agenda of the ministerial meeting, notably the dangerous developments in the Palestinian cause, according to the same source.
The Arab Ministers of Foreign Affairs meeting in Cairo have decided to initiate procedures to freeze the participation of the Israeli occupation in the proceedings of the United Nations General Assembly on the grounds of non-compliance with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, failure to annul its commitments to the UN, and the threat it poses to international peace and security. The group of Arab ambassadors in New York has been instructed to submit a request to freeze the Israeli occupation's participation to the President of the UN General Assembly and through him to the Credential Committee, which is appointed at the beginning of the General Assembly session, while at the same time working to mobilize the international support needed to make this a reality, notably by relying on the historic advisory opinion issued by the International Court of Justice on July 19, 2024, which stipulates that members of the international community must take concrete measures to put an end to Israeli violations in the occupied Palestinian territories. The decision taken by the Council of Arab Ministers of Foreign Affairs is an endorsement of the approach that Algeria has consistently advocated through the Minister of Foreign Affairs International Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Hattaf, who has called on several occasions, both at the level of the Arab League and within the framework of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, to tighten the grip on the Israeli occupation in international fora, notably the UN. And now Jordan and the United Nations have stressed the importance of supporting the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, in providing aid to the people of the Gaza Strip devastated by almost a year of genocidal Israeli aggression. The Jordanian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Ayman Safadi met UNRWA Commissioner General Philip Lazzaroni in Cairo on the sidelines of the 162nd Ordinary Session of the Arab League Council at ministerial level. The two sides stressed the importance of providing the necessary support to the UN agency so that it can continue to deliver its vital humanitarian services to more than 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza who are facing an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe as a result of the ongoing aggression against the Palestinian enclave since October 7, 2023. The Israeli occupation is carrying out a devastating aggression against Gaza, leaving around 136,000 Palestinians martyred and wounded, most of them children and women, and more than 10,000 missing in the midst of massive destruction and murderous famine. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Palestinian presidency has held the announcement by the State of South Africa of its continued commitment to follow up on the case it filed in the International Court of Justice against Israel, the occupying power, for committing crimes of genocide against Palestinian people in Gaza. The details with Jemal Salmani.
The Palestinian presidency affirmed the state of Palestine's readiness to fully coordinate and diligently follow up with the state of South Africa and with the rest of the countries that joined the case in the International Court of Justice to stop the genocide and achieve accountability and justice. It called on partner and friendly countries to join the case of South Africa and the countries that stood by the Palestinian right to ensure the enforcement of international law and its implementation without double standards. South Africa has announced its intention to submit a memorandum to the International Court of Justice next month, including evidence proving that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. It expressed its hope that Israel will abide by the interim orders issued by the court so far. It also said that several countries, namely Nicaragua, Palestine, Turkey, Spain, Mexico, Libya and Colombia, have joined the case filed by South Africa against Israel. At the end of December 2023, South Africa filed a lawsuit against Israel before the International Court of Justice on the grounds that it had violated the 1948 UN Convention on the Prevention of the Crime of Genocide. The Palestinian presidency appreciated the position of the people and government of South Africa, which always supports and advocates for the Palestinian right, and this firm commitment reflects the common consensus on devoting the values of justice and human rights in the international arena and on the depth of relations between the two countries.
At least 26 Palestinians were killed and others were injured today in Zionist army bombardments on different areas of the Gaza Strip, which has been subjected to a genocidal aggression for 341 days. In the town of Khan Yunis, 13 Palestinians were killed and several others wounded when Zionist warplanes bombed a house in the locality of Khuzar. In addition, a Palestinian fisherman was shot dead after being targeted by Zionist army warship opposite Mawasi in Khan Yunis. In the north of the Gaza Strip, 9 Palestinians were killed, including 3 children and 2 women, and several others are reported missing following a Zionist army bombardment that targeted a house in the town of El Jabalia. In central Gaza, 4 Palestinians were killed and 11 others were injured after the occupying forces targeted a house in Block C of the Nusayrat camp. In reaction for what happened in Gaza at Al-Mawasi camp, the spokesman for the UN Secretary-General, Stéphane Dujarric, has recalled that no place is safe in Gaza, saying that the use of heavy weapons in densely populated areas is unconscionable.
The Secretary General is deeply alarmed by the continued loss of life in Gaza. He strongly condemns today's Israeli airstrike in an Israeli designated zone for displaced persons in Khan Yunis. The use of heavy weapons in densely populated areas is unconscionable. Palestinians had moved to this area in Khan Yunis in search for shelter, in search of safety, after being repeatedly instructed to do so by the Israeli authorities themselves. As the Secretary General has repeatedly said, there is no safe place in Gaza. He repeats yet again his call for an immediate ceasefire and for the immediate and unconditional of all Israeli hostages and others nationalities still being held in Gaza.
That was the spokesman for the UN Secretary-General, Stéphane Dujarric. Still in our Palestinian file, the head of the European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, has warned against the risk of seeing the occupied West Bank turn into a new Gaza Strip, the victim of a barbaric genocide. Joseph Borrell said that a new front is being opened with the clear objective to transform the occupied West Bank into a new Gaza by increasing the violence, delegitimizing the state of Palestine and encouraging provocations in order to react forcefully and without being afraid to tell the world that the only way to achieve a peaceful resolution of the conflict is to annex the occupied West Bank and Gaza. Speaking in Cairo, where he was taking part in an Arab League ministerial meeting, he said that extremist members of the Zionist entity are trying to make it impossible to create a future Palestinian state. He added that without action, the occupied West Bank will become a new Gaza, and that Gaza will become a new occupied West Bank while settlers groups are preparing new settlements, regretting that the international community deplores, feels, experiences, but has difficulty to act. And now the director of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has said that the attacks by the Zionist occupying forces against displaced Palestinians demonstrates once again the need for a ceasefire and stressed that no medicine can be effective in an environment where people are being killed. The details with Said Bourazi.
In a message on the X platform, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has said that Zionist attacks have repeatedly taken place in areas that are supposed to be safe and where the displaced people of the Gaza Strip reside. The Zionist attacks against the tens of displaced civilians in the town of Khan Yunis have demonstrated once again the urgent need for a ceasefire, he added. He underlined that no vaccine or medicine can be effective in an environment where people are killed and forced to live in poor conditions. The Zionist occupation army bombardment at dawn on Tuesday of the tens of displaced persons in the El Mawasi area, supposedly classified as safe, killed 40 people, wounded 60 others, while dozens are missing, according to a preliminary assessment by the Palestinian authorities. The Zionist entity has been waging a devastating war against the besieged Gaza Strip since 7th October 2023, leaving around 136,000 Palestinians killed or wounded, most of them children and women, and more than 10,000 missing amid massive destruction and murderous famine.
The World Congress Against Fascism is taking place in Venezuela with the presence of representatives from 95 countries who are debating in Caracas various ideas to confront the attacks suffered by popular political projects. The two-day meeting's objective is to contribute to strategies in defense of the right to peace and the future against hatred, lies and manipulation of extreme oppositions. From the Venezuelan capital Caracas, our reporter Thoraya Bujema met with a participant who gave us further details about the events.
The First World Anti-Fascist Congress began in Caracas, Venezuela. This event will take place for 2 days. This Congress brought together representatives from 95 countries and will feature the participation of more than 200 world-renowned intellectuals. The Congress was a space for debate and reflection to take concrete actions against Western interference. During the event, forums and presentations were held, and a documentary was presented addressing the role of social networks in the media war. In addition, a report entitled Cognitive Warfare, An Attack on the Peace of Venezuelans was published, which will be disseminated in all states of the country. The Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, highlighted the importance of this Congress in her opening speech. Technological imperialism came upon us. Large corporations came against Venezuela and gave us 30 million attacks per minute. And the best response, as you can see, is to be here and see that it is a country that is at peace. Rodriguez warned about the dangers of fascism on a global level. If fascism were to take over all the spaces of this planet, there would be not a square meter left where we could breathe, she said. She also denounced the use of algorithms on social media as tools of control and manipulation. They put the power of the dictatorship of algorithms on social media at their service. It is estimated that more than $1 billion was invested to overthrow the Bolivarian government, she added. The First World Anti-Fascist Congress promises to be a milestone in the fight against fascism and the defense of peace and the sovereignty of the peoples.
Back to national news, Algerian boxer Ayman Khalif, gold medalist at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, has been named Children's Rights Champion by the UNICEF office in Algeria at a special ceremony organised for this purpose in Algiers. The organisation said in a press release that this symbolic and convivial ceremony was organised to pay tribute to the exemplary and inspiring career of Olympic champion Ayman Khalif and to mark her ongoing commitment to the children's rights agenda since her appointment as a national ambassador for UNICEF on December 31st, 2023. The ceremony was attended by the resident coordinator of the United Nations system, Alejandro Alvarez, in Algeria, as well as several other representatives of the UN agencies in Algeria and their families. And with this last piece of news comes the end of our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a special program by Asia Bakar. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.